Om Stabhakaya Jadharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace. May peace come to us all. Well, thank you for coming. I'm going to talk about my trip to India. I call it my adventures and misadventures in India, although really it's my first trip to a real Holy Land. It's just a phenomenal place to visit. I had no idea what I was going to experience. Actually, I decided to approach it as an adventure, because in an adventure you don't know what's going to happen. Things may be good, things may be bad. Didn't matter, because that's part of an adventure. In fact, if it isn't tough, it's really not much of an adventure. So I didn't know what would happen. I flew to India with stories from 50 years ago of what India was like, how people were. They'd all stare at you on the street. And so I had no idea what was going to happen. I know a lot had happened in India for the past 50 years, so I just showed up. Arrived at the airport around 10 or 11 o'clock at night. The international flights do that. And the people aren't allowed to come into the airport. They have to wait outside. So I go out and I'm looking. And good for me, fortunately for me, I think you all know Swami Vedamritananda, an American Swami who's been here. So there he was with the driver, and I was in India. And I'm going, wow, here I am. And the airport was filled with the smoke of coal, and I thought, oh boy, here we go. Fortunately, it was only the airport, like that. So I went there, and I got my first experience of Indian streets. Now, I don't know how many of you have been to India, probably a majority of you have, but Americans would just fall apart. It works. I don't know how it works, but they turn off, this was nighttime, they turn their lights off when they're driving to save electricity, I guess. They'll drive on either side of the road. Bicycles, no rickshaws allowed at that hour, but there were still some. No cows at that time. And I said to Vedamritananda, where's the seatbelt? He said, seatbelt? What seatbelt? So I thought, okay, here we go. So, he explained to me, when they honk, they're saying, this is where I am. So everybody's honking, and these huge trucks and buses, and the driver just nonchalantly, I think they drive by feel as opposed to intellectual skill, because you have to know exactly where your car is. And so about 40 minutes of that, and like I say, I'm kind of going, whoa. And finally we get to Bellarmont, and it's just like this haven. It was not at all like I imagined it. And in the darkness, I could make out the outline of the temple, which was just this huge thing. But, went to my quarters. The next day, Vedamritananda had bought me a dhoti and chadar. I'd never worn a dhoti and chadar before. And there I was, walking around in a white chadar. So that's how it went. So it was just a matter of getting to know people and going through the routine. So there I am. Is it there yet? Oh, wait a minute. What happened? It always says. Well, that's good. Okay. There. No. Yeah, that's it. So there I am. So part of the deal was, whoops, it's not supposed to do that. Part of the deal is you go around and pranam everybody. So Vedamritananda took me around and announced me to everybody. Oh, come on. Okay, we got to start over here. I was going to use my fancy new computer for this, but it wasn't compatible with the system we have. So, there, okay. I don't know how to stop it. I didn't count on it doing that. Anyway, there I am. And I'm walking around, meeting people, and they're all incredibly nice. And I just felt this burden released from me. There's a real spiritual atmosphere there. And if you think about it, all these disciples of Ramakrishna had walked back and forth all over the property, and including the giants. And they're not into history. I wish they were, because I'd walk up and down the street, and I found out Holy Mother and Swami Vivekananda, Swami Brahmananda walk back and forth there, and I'm just... there's a temptation just to not see that history, but I did, and it was just phenomenal. So I meet all these people, and here's a sign that I was at what was called the Vivekananda building, and this is right outside the Bellarmont Library, which is quite a thing to have. And these were for all the monks to see every time they walked by. My master's lips never cursed anyone, never even criticize anyone. Those eyes were beyond the possibility of seeing evil. That mind had lost the power of thinking evil. He saw nothing but God. And here's the one that blew my mind. 90% of the sadhus, even after renouncing lust and wealth, get bound at last by the desire of name and fame. That's pretty scary. And you've probably heard something like this: if a man with an ideal makes 1,000 mistakes, I am sure that the man without an ideal makes 50,000. Therefore, it is better to have an ideal. So one of the things, I was ready to experience India. So they have these bandaras, these feasts all over the place. And they send a bus, and you just hop on the bus. It's not required, but okay. So we went an hour and a half deep into the back country. I mean, sometimes I wasn't sure the bus could make the turn. But these guys are used to that. And so we're going along, and finally we stop at this village. And I'm sure it's been that way for thousands of years, this place. I mean, they now have electricity, and somebody would somehow get a boom box, and that would be the boom box for that whole area, and be blasting out with amplification, devotional music, of course. So I like this picture because it sort of gives a picture. We're getting on the bus. Oh, I was going to say, these monks, I don't know how they did it, but from no presents at all, they had this whole program going to help the people farm, to sell their product, to teach them basic health information, and they had even a temple by the time I got there. I mean, that was my first glimpse of just how much the Ramakrishna mission does. They're really helping people. I mean, incredible what they're doing, and I'll talk about this as I go along. But it's an amazing movement, and when you hear that the Prime Minister supports them so much, this is the reason why. They are doing so much good. So we took a trip to the Dakshineshwar Kali Temple. You can see that in the background, in this little putt-putt boat. If this all works, you'll be able to hear the putt-putt. And another picture here. These are some monks who hitched a ride with us across the river. I don't know what Rupananda is saying. He's looking very serious. But the other guy's smiling, so maybe the sun was getting him. But my first trip to the Dakshineshwar Kali Temple, and just to give a little flavor of what we went by in the boat. So there's the temple. I took that from later. There are all these signs, do not take pictures. And I'm used to, you have to obey the rules. But in India, it seems it's more of a suggestion than a requirement. So, but I got to behave, I'm just there a few days already. And this is actually someone else took this picture. That's another part of the story. But for the first time, I saw the Kali image. And I just want you to know, the pictures just don't do her justice. I mean, she just stood there like in 3 dimensions, and I just couldn't believe it. It was, like I say, the first time. And I thought the Kali temple was sort of modern, like ours. You've got an image and a priest doing the worship and a platform. And I had forgotten what I'd been told, that they're actually very small. And if you can see how tall that is. But in fact, you only have a little space about this wide to peer in and look. And we didn't know that if we had just told the mission authorities we were going, they would have made a phone call and we could have gone in the inner shrine where Ramakrishna actually sat and did the worship and so forth. But still, I was so blown away. The temple used to be white. I don't know why they changed the color. The environment is very hard on buildings, so maybe they thought it was better. There's talk about the Ramakrishna order getting it, but a lot of legal complications, so it may not happen. It would be fun to sit in that Kali shrine in the middle of the night. Yeah, it's what they call an awakened image, and so it's very popular for people who come with prayers, So I went to there's a place called the Vivekananda University, and of course I had to take the odd shot. There's a ceremony dedicating the second wing. Now the Vivekananda University is for postgraduate students, PhD and beyond. And they have these, a lot of the Swamis have PhDs and are teaching there. So I just took that picture just to show the ceremony going on. Another picture of the temple. Okay, so I spent my time walking around in the daytime when I wasn't meeting people. And this is a picture that was taken in the old building, the old shrine. And I only mention this to you. You can't see the names, and I can't see it very clearly here. But it's a who's who of Swamis of the past. There's Swami Atishwarananda there, Vivekananda, who is head of the Seattle Center, Subodhananda. It's pretty hard to read it even here with this screen. But it was a who's who. In one picture, Swami Shivananda was on the second floor looking at them, and then he went around. So, move real fast here. This is the dining hall, and so I would sit with the old people because I can't sit cross-legged, and by their standards, I'm old because I was then 67. I was quite, what's the word to use? The star is saying too much, but word spreads very quickly there. It's amazing how quickly everything... And the fact that a 67-year-old who had been in the organization 43 years was coming for sannyas, that was a topic of discussion. So I thought it would almost be like, it took you this long? What's the matter with you? Actually, they were glad that I endured and survived, and I was there. So it was worked out quite well for me. And the people were very nice. So this was actually taken Shivaratri night of the temple. I kind of like it because of the way the picture was taken. It's a huge temple. I'm planning to show one directory worth of pictures here, and then one or two more in the living room, because there's anything I can't take. It's a whole bunch of slides. So there it is. There's the temple, though, and you can see it's pretty big. And it's really wonderful. There's a picture of not a picture, they have a carved statue of Ramakrishna. Again, the pictures just don't do it justice. I've noticed that Indians who have been there just love the pictures. And we just couldn't relate to them. Statues are cold. But when you actually saw the real one, it was quite dramatic. There I am again. Oh, this is... I didn't want to give a slideshow, actually, just so I wouldn't feel bound by the photographs. But anyway, the days get closer, and first we have to go through Shivaratri, and they really know how to celebrate Shivaratri. And I've got pictures here. Let's see what's there. This is called the training center. We were on the third floor once the sannyas camp. They call it sannyas camp. And they have a training center, and after 2 years of training center, you go back, you spend a couple of years more, you get brahmacharya, spend a couple of years more, and you finally become a Swami. So I hadn't really been waiting, I just took a long time, but the others in my group were just delighted finally the time had come. Because in India, when you become a Swami, that's really important. And there's a lot of opportunities for it. This was the head of our group. I'd like to see him come to America. Sujit Maharaj. He was the head of our group, and he's the current head of the training center. And I show you this picture for the old-timers here. He reminds me of Swami Vedamritananda. He's got that same big toothy smile. He didn't sing for us, but wonderful soul. Shivaratri, here's the temple. Whoops, that's not supposed to be there. Okay. The rest of the pictures will be in the temple. I should have the picture of the dancing. I did put it here, but I don't want to spend a lot of time looking. I was warned by Swami Sridharananda not to stay the whole time because it's pretty intense. It's Indian style, 3 days of fasting. I was told 2, and then it was 3. I wasn't happy. But anyway, they have and you can watch it on at their website, the Shivaratri. And they'd have these training center boys dancing up and down at the end of each watch. So I watched them rehearse and so forth. Anyway, it's the place is packed, and that's later. I sat next to him, disciple of Swami Vedamritananda. Anyway, the person you want to look at is the taller one. He's Ramdas Maharaj, and he's coming here as soon as we get all the documents signed and okayed and the passport issued, the visa issued. He speaks excellent English. He's from Argentina, very much the Argentine, and he'll be especially focusing on Spanish-speaking people because he's the obvious one to do it. Really nice guy. So these people were all supporting me, encouraging me. So there's a clearer picture of them. We all tease each other. It's a bunch of guys, So there's a lot of fun. So various things happened. I do business. We've been doing years of business at Voida Ashram, ordering books. So one day the head of the ashram came by to my room, said, "Okay, let's go. I'm taking you over there." Oh, okay. That's the way you go in India. You just kind of flow with what happens. You don't make too many plans. So I went there, got to see their place. It's right in the middle of Calcutta, which means all the fumes and all the traffic. And, it's like, whoa, But I saw the, book business stuff, ordered some books and so forth, talked to them. Deepak, I don't know, a number of you know Deepak, or Deepak Maharaj as we call him. That's where he does. He does helps with the Prabhupada Bharata magazine. So I only made one visit because I felt like I was going to work. So, yeah. Okay, well, there's. Let's hold off the pictures a while. So I went to the Institute of Culture afterwards. They were having yet another feast. All I seemed to do was eat while I was there. There was just too much food, and I tried to. And at first I wanted to be polite and eat the food, and then I learned that the way you stop them from giving food, you should go like that over the plate. Because and they gave me a special diet so I wouldn't get sick. In the old times, they said if you're going to be there for 2 weeks, you're going to be sick for a week. So they built a world-class water plant, and so all the water was safe, and I basically didn't get sick at all. I ate one sweet that I shouldn't have eaten, that I knew I shouldn't have eaten, but upset stomach, and then they had a pious that night that just soothed the stomach. And so, health was not a problem. I was careful, but, it was fine. So anyway, we got closer, and finally the Shivaratri was held, day of fasting. Now, Indians, I thought, the way I was taught here, a real fasting is no water, no food. You just tough it out. And when the weather's hot, that can be a little risky. But they offered coconut milk and some sugary drink and one other item, and I had no problem making it through. So Shivaratri is concluded, and the day of our sannyas ceremony is on Ramakrishna's birthday. But it's done at night, not in the morning. So we were doing preparation. We'll go through these pictures later. We were doing lots of preparation. We had to dye our white dhotis and chutters, and plus the president, vice president, and so forth give us some new ones. So we have to dye them. Now, I had no experience in dyeing, and so some of the Swamis came to us and showed us how to do it. And because for the group picture we all had to have the same color, we were using the same kind of clay that monks have used since ancient times. The problem is it loses the color. But there we are doing it. I've got a video clip of it just showing all the chaos and so forth. I wasn't able to use a video program to put the slides together, so that's what's messing it up. I finally had to do it helter-skelter, so to speak. So, in fact, you know what? I'm going to, maybe I better not. Oh, here it is. This is the temple. It's very high. The priest, the Swami, is doing arati to the Shiva. And the Shiva is a world-class runner, just so you know. Goes on and on. Okay. We weren't supposed to take pictures during the. We weren't technically when we were in the sannyas camps for 6. I think it was 6 days before and 6 after. I've forgotten. We were supposed to wear unsewn, unstitched clothing, go barefoot, and not use electronic devices. We're not supposed to shave. I didn't know that till the end. You know, this is India, and they don't tell you everything. And I was telling the head guy, I've been wondering if I should shave, because to me I was shaving out of laziness. He says, no, don't do it yet. And I found out that was the way it went. You know, they don't throw a bunch of rules at you. So anyway, we were staying at the training center on what we call the 3rd floor, and we'd attend classes by Swami Vedamritananda. Those who know him know how wonderful he is. It was such a wonderful voice where he would do the chanting and then we'd repeat. It was all Sanskrit. So finally the time came. We had to get up at 2 a.m. And like I say, I had no idea what was to come. Now, I didn't mention earlier I went to Sydney, Australia to be with Swami Vedamritananda before, where he told me a few things. But he didn't want to tell me too much because he wanted it to be all fresh. So here we are, we're wearing the white dhoti and chutter, and we go out. And the ceremony is kind of private, but I can tell you this much. When I walked into that temple, and it's a huge temple, and there was just this sea of ochre, and all these people had gotten up like at 2 a.m, just like we had, to show up for this ceremony. I mean, they really like it. And so we went through this chanting, and the acoustics of the temple are such that it just adds a mood to the chanting. I mean, you didn't even have to know what the Sanskrit was, just to feel the depth and spirituality of it. So finally, we go through this and go through that, and the dawn has come now. The ceremony's over. I'm now wearing garawa, first time. We had dyed it, and I was wearing it, and we're in what's called the president's house. And the tradition is you're given your Swami name. You know, we don't know what they're going to do. And so you wait until your turn. I think I was number 27, whatever it was. And so I was told, Vedamritananda. And of course, like, you know, this whole trip to India, everything's new. Everything is like, and I feel like I'm okay, but I'm at attention, so to speak. And so he tells me the name. The president is there, and he's very ill, but, he was there for the ceremony, the whole thing. The vice president is reading the name out. So my job now is to turn around, face the audience. We're now in the president's room, and all these swamis are there. And I'm supposed to repeat my name. Vedam, and he says, Vedamritananda. And I said, Vedamritananda. And the crowd cheers. And one of them said later, it was like the prize at last. I thought, I was going, got it. Vedamritananda. Vedamritananda. Anyway. So anyway, one of the swamis was trying to restore order, and they were having too much fun. So then finally, it's done. So there's a lot of relief there for us. So the next step is they take us on a pilgrimage, 3 days of pilgrimage. So the first day, we go to Kolkata, to see the holy places. So these are the standard places. First, the Dakshineshwar Kali Temple, and that's where these pictures came from. Let's see if we can bring this back up now. Okay, well, there's Kasapur Garden House. We went there. It's a beautiful, they've really fixed the place nice. It was a rough bus ride there, but once you go in, it's just a sanctuary. And apparently, I forgot what it said, 10,000 people come on January 1st, Kalpataru Day. And I don't think the tree is still there. Million people? That's too hard to believe. There's me doing it again in one of the places. Now we're jumping ahead here. I don't want to do that. Anyway, I'll go through the slides for this group. Anyway, we went to Balaram Mandir, where Ramakrishna and Swami, all the disciples had gone there, partly because in those days, that's where you had to go for medical attention if you wanted to see a doctor. And it's where Swami Brahmananda died. And we were doing singing they took out the walls, so it's one room with the shrine, but that was the place where he died. So for me, with my connection with Swami Prabhavananda, that was pretty amazing. And I'll show you some pictures. I have pictures later, but to tell the story. So we sit around and they feed us again, and we're sitting, and and I notice all these women lined up, and I'm going, oh, they must be waiting for us to leave. And I'm waiting and waiting, and then something very strange happened. They all started coming to each one of us doing pranams. And the old Swami in charge of the place, I think he was enjoying our look of discomfort, and then they'd give us 10 rupees. And that really bothered me. What am I doing being paid 10 rupees to let someone do a pranam? But, I had learned, just go along with what everybody else does, and, it all sorts itself out. So I collected quite a few 10 rupee notes, I mean, it was kind of crazy. But, I want to say, you don't have to pay, but, So we're going through it, and I don't know why they did it. Apparently it's the only place you do it, where you collect money for the pranams. It's called pranami. So I was very embarrassed by it, but there it is. So then we went to Bodhin, where Holy Mother lived, and we could see her bedroom and Swami Sardananda's bedroom next door. In my whole trip, I felt like I was following Holy Mother around. I'm told that she couldn't say no to anybody. And so she just traveled to South India. I went to Madras, Chennai. But everywhere I went, there were shrines of where she had been. There were her slippers. It was just kind of amazing. And not just, I went to a 4,000-year-old temple when I was in South India. Holy Mother and Swami Vivekananda had been there. It was just, like I say, everywhere I was, it was like a pilgrimage spot. So we went to, the pictures aren't like they should have been. Anyway, we took the trip. The next day, 2 days, we went to Kumarpukur one day and Jairambati the other, with various places. Now, at Kumarpukur, see, the rest of the guys in my group, they had been there several times. And fortunately, I'd have someone who'd take me around. And I'd go, this is where Ramakrishna went to school. And, you read about it, there it is. And this is where he played as a kid. This is the ghat, they call it, pond where he'd swim. And the whole place was like that. There was his room. We looked in his room. Here was the family shrine. So it was. It's one thing like here, we don't get any connection physically with Holy Mother and the others. Only Swami Vivekananda because of our house in Pasadena. But anyway, I walked all over the place at Kumar Pukur, and then we went out into a field and chanted the sannyas mantras, and came back, and then we went to Jairambati, stopping at different places along the way. And at Jairambati, we don't have the picture here, but I was looking at her room. She had been there many years, and right here is where she sat for this picture, and right there is where she sat for that picture. Yeah, it was like, ooh. And her room had such a spiritual atmosphere. I guess people can get used to it. I hope I never get used to a spiritual atmosphere. Anyway, we came back, and I'll narrate more stories as these pictures progress. Then we had to deal with the public dinner day. And that's when anybody can come on the grounds and have food. They don't even make them go to a service or anything. If you don't want to do it, you don't do it. They invite that one time a year the merchants. It's all small merchants. They get a space to sell their wares, so it will help them with what they're doing. And I was assigned to guarding the relics. And I didn't realize how many relics that the order has of Ramakrishna. And we went into a special room where they had all this stuff, the ashes of the direct disciples in the room. It's really amazing. So anyway, here we go. Come on, move. Let's get it started anyway. So there's that writings. The Ramakrishna, the picture like that, they have that shirt he wore. It's actually green. And they let me touch it even, for what? And here's, the Kamandalu is about this big. I'd never seen one that big. But this was all Ramakrishna's stuff. Silverware, all that. And so it was on display for anybody who walked by. And the handwriting, it said, they had me hold it for about 10, 15 minutes. And I said to Atmarupananda, who was with me, what does it say? And he looked at it and said, I can only read printed Bengali. I can't read that. I think he made out one word. But it was pretty cool to be able to hold it in my hands. And this is people leaving on the public dinner day. You can just see the crowds. I should say, they have huge fireworks at the end to culminate it. Just this huge firework display. So, and this is, I didn't quite understand, it was burning a demon. And the priest, the Swami for the dining hall came and threw vegetables and food in it to cook it, to serve to us later. So I thought that was funny. This is a brahmachari I was friends with. These people all took and explained things to me. Okay, now this picture, we're going to have to go by the pictures now. I'm in South India in what's called the Ice House. This is where Swami Vivekananda stayed for a while. And this is his room. I couldn't quite get a good picture of him. It's bathed in blue light, very peaceful, nice atmosphere. And there it is on the outside. The order owns it. I was really shocked. It's called the Ice House. Why is it called the Ice House? Well, some guy had a scheme, the Swami that works there explained it to me, where they would take ice from Walden Pond in the United States and ship it to Madras. And it was such an insane concept, I just couldn't believe it. It seemed absolutely insane. The distance, well, of course, if you think it's wintertime there and summer in Madras, but still, it was just insane. The guy did it till they had ice-keeping machine, but I've been to Walden Pond. Those who know Doug Rao and McKell, they live near it, and so they take me there every time I go. Beautiful spot, Walden Pond, that kind of thing. But when I was in Madras, they took me to these schools, and they're very proud of these schools. And Swami Brahmananda, I think he did dedicated it there. What they do is they take boys in poverty and they take them, they give them room and board, they give them an education all the way through college, and the idea is that you take one person out of poverty, 10 more people come out of poverty following him. And they've been doing this for years and years. They have an alumni group. It's an amazing thing to see it in action. And now they have colleges, various places. Education is one of the strong activities of the order. They're very proud of their solar cells. We're just getting them. They had it long ago. Okay, in Madras I went to the Church of St. Thomas. He's one of the original disciples of Christ, and that's not his body, it's a statue. I was afraid it was his body when I walked in. But it had a real nice atmosphere, and it's underground. And I did 2 visits there. I really liked it. I was brought up Catholic, and the first time I saw the priest in charge, and the second time I met this really nice nun who, she said she was from Italy, but I think she was a South Indian. But had a delightful talk about the whole thing. The nuns there don't get an equal role, but one of her jobs is they take care of the old priests. I mean, those nuns do an amazing job in the church. This is the monk I was with, touring around. He's from Sydney originally. He was there for his father's death, so Madras is a work center, so it was easier if they did it this way. And there were signs all over the place, do not take pictures, do not take pictures. And these Cistercian priests, I think they were Cistercian, offered to take the picture for me. I said to them, 2 down, 3 to go. I've been to St. Peter's. So, and this is outside the temple we went to. At first they wouldn't let me in. I remember watching white people stand out like a sore thumb, I swear. And they weren't happy. And I was going, what's the matter with them? So I go over, and the guard security guy says he can't come in. He's not an Indian. And the monk with me says, but he's been a monk for years. He's a Swami. Doesn't matter. And I'm thinking, well, this will just be part of my story, And the driver comes running up. He says, but it's true. I said, okay. All these pictures, no photographs I wanted to take. So I go in this I could not imagine, a 4,000-year-old building where they've been doing worship for all these years. And the priest sees me, and I thought, okay, they're going to not like my being there. Now, he said I could go through, but if they want to be mean, they could say you've polluted the place and you have to pay for the purification. So I don't know what's happening. I'm just following, my guide. And the priest gives me this garland that had been offered to Shiva. So we had no problem, and then we went to a Krishna temple. This time there was no problem. And one of the priests says, was explaining to me, just so he could see I was a Westerner. And in good English, he explains some things to me. And I said, is this 4,000? Oh yeah, 4,000-year-old image. I mean, we don't have buildings that are 1,000 years old here, except American Indian settlements, which, it doesn't really show a lot. So, another picture. That's the top with all these intricately carved images. Now, I asked in Bengal, I said, why don't you have 4,000-year-old temples? And he said, the Muslims destroyed it. And I went, obviously these people are fanatics within their own group, but I just could not imagine the work. It takes work to build a temple. This is before explosives. They had to use basic hand tools to destroy the temples. It took as much trouble to destroy the temple as to build it. I can't really understand that. So here's the outside of the Church of St. Thomas. And Mother Teresa, of course, is very big around here. So this is the inside of the church. This was my birthday, and so the training center boys were celebrating it. I didn't tell them it was my birthday. I don't know how they found out. There's me. We're going ahead of the story, about to go begging. This is back to Shivaratri. These were supposed to be together, but whatever. So they're all dancing outside while the Shivaratri is going inside. So if you don't want to sit inside, and let me tell you about the mosquitoes. They're great devotees. Whenever there's a arati or some function, it's dinner time for them. And they love my American blood. I had over 200 insect bites. I tried to avoid using DEET, but So anyway, they're partying around like, they like to dance too. On the fire. When we were traveling around, this Swami was in charge of one place where Holy Mother stayed. It's now a retreat center for monks who want to just sit quietly and meditate. He's very nice to me, very sweet-natured. You can tell by his face. I wanted you to just see his face. Here we are in the bus. People are having a good time, as you can see. There's our Atmarupanan Deepak. I think we got some food. That's what that is. So this is the monk again. I was told, don't go out there. You'll get powder thrown at you. And I thought, why not? So, the training center boys are gung-ho into this stuff. They're like kids. They're in their late 20s, early 30s. But, they're having a great time. So one of them saw me and immediately went up and did that. Actually, I have more. There are other pictures which I couldn't find for this of me just covered all over the place. It's just dust, and you just knock it off. But, this picture shouldn't be here either. Well, I guess that's it. What are we doing for time? 11:46. So afterwards I went to Sydney. I could have shown a ton of pictures of Sydney. I didn't know how much time this whole thing would take. But they've just rebuilt the whole thing, and where you see that little white triangular thing, that's where they're going to put the formal temple. Underneath is a simple temple. So that's where I went afterwards. And I was just trying to show, when I go to visit Sydney, I go to the airport maybe 10 times, 15 times. These people here are from New Zealand, and I actually, with Swami, went to New Zealand and traveled around with them. So they came for the dedication of the Brisbane Center, which I went to. We took 4 days to and from Brisbane for the dedication. I'm not showing you the pictures of that. That's for later. And that's it. As far as the trip goes, see if other things I could mention, like one of the Swamis, I shouldn't mention his name. I sat across from him and I'd look at his face, and I saw right away the depth of his. There's something else I was going to show. Wait a minute. The depth, and so I was in his office. And I felt, and here, when we'd have these old Swamis visit us, we'd want to know their stories. And so I kind of was bold, and I said, when I'm in the dining hall, I see you sitting there. And it reminds me of the story of Ramakrishna, where the mother bird, she may be going around, but her mind is always on the egg. And, what are you thinking? And he told me, quite frankly, about, just more and more Thakur and Ma. And he told about how at one point he had this spiritual experience that lasted for days. And he just couldn't sleep. And it got to the point he just begged, prayed to have it taken away from him because he wanted to sleep. And he said, like the moss in the ponds, it just covered up everything. He said, but it came back later, he said. There's I didn't want to be too organized. The slides distract me. There's a old age home for Swamis. And if you want to know the truths of Vedanta, if they work, you just go visit there. And there's one Swami, oh my God, disciple of Swami Shankarananda. I wanted to visit him again, I forgot his name, and I ran out of time. I was surprisingly busy. Just his voice, just to hear him speaking, the sweetness in his voice, just felt so good, just to hear him talk. There was another Swami also like that. He pretty much had to just lie in bed. I'd sometimes come in and he'd be asleep. He'd been doing his jopam and fell asleep. Somebody said that monks join angry and die at old age, very sweet, loving, and full of the divine spirit. And you really felt that at this home. I mean, the bottom line is, does it work? And that's what I found with let me close this. There was a few more videos I wanted to show. Okay, let's... There it is. This may not work. Let's see what it does. This was supposed to come next when I did the crowds. Oh dear. Might make an adjustment. Well, you get an idea. It was pretty packed. So the more stuff at the end. It's supposed to be. Oh, it is here. Okay. This is when we were dyeing the clothes. So that was, okay, I think that's the end of these. Tell you what, let's... Let me go to the down. A lot of pictures. See, I'm sparing you all this stuff. Okay, now this is a movie. Let's see what it is. Oh, I'm glad this is us going out to do the first... Oh, I have to tell you about going begging. So we put So we've got a cloth that's folded in the corners and made into a sort of begging, well, I want to say begging bowl. I said, where's my bowl? They said, wrong religion. We're supposed to use this bag and go around. So it is begging, but I would explain to you that most of the begging, probably all the begging, was the ladies wanting us to take their food. So we were told not to go to get food at the gate where they tended to be, but to go out farther. And it was absolutely amazing. The first day, okay, I didn't get food as I was going out. And so I went away. I was with Deepak and some other people, about 5 of us. And we have to be barefoot. So the distance you go is dependent on how well your feet can take going barefoot on this sharp road. I don't know how else to describe it. So at one point, we go Om Namo Narayana, and people are eager to give us food because they know on these 3 days the monks will come around. And all these women are gathered around me doing pranam. I was thinking, I'm this white guy. Why I should be giving them something? Why should I be begging? They're not going to like this. They gravitated to me. I figured because I looked older than the others. That's the only real reason. But so all these ladies are just massed. They're just coming and coming. And the people I was with were walking away. I said, hey, wait for me. And off they went. And then this man comes up. These are simple village people. I don't know if you could call them poor, but they probably were. Nobody's overweight in that group. And he said, bless me here. And because he came up, suddenly all these men came up. And so I was just doing like that on their forehead. I'm not ready to be doing that. And I just never, and the feeling, the devotion. My roommate at the sannyas camp said that, it's a spiritual country. And I said, well, let me see. But I really saw it. Swami Vedamritananda, for those who know him, he used to say that in America, romance is in the air. In India, spirituality is in the air. And that's the world I was living in when I was there. Anyway, the people were all coming, and finally I was able to go, and I found my group. So we're coming back, and I figured, well, I've gotten the food I need. But this woman almost cried, oh, take some food. So I ended up with this huge thing of food. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. So we share it with the other Swamis. The next day, it wasn't the same thing, but I wanted to tell you the Argentine Swami I mentioned. some of the Swamis do it begging again just for the spirit of it. And so there he is, he's with us, but he's going to do real begging. None of this people waiting with cooked food for you. And he goes way back. And I don't know how far he walked. His feet were strong. And he had a problem. Nobody would give him food. He'd do the Om Namo Narayana. Nobody would give him food. Finally, he found somebody who gave him a little bit of food. And they said, "We're disciples of Swami Vedamritananda." He said, "Oh, I'm a disciple of Swami Vedamritananda." And then they poured the food on him. So he went. There's another Swami. He was the Swami in charge of our group. He was, this old lady was there, and she wanted to give. She said, "Oh, I can't." I said, "No, I'll take anything. Anything." And then he learned that her husband had died. Her husband had died, and she had almost no money. Her son and his family lived there, but they didn't share their food with them. They didn't help pay for expenses, and she didn't feel she could do something. My American, let's get things down to business. Let me go talk to him, That they don't do that. And so she's telling about it, and he said, "Just anything will do." And she found some little something. "Is this okay?" "Oh, yes, it's wonderful." It's very auspicious to give food to a begging monk. And so just gave a little something. And she said, "Just pray for me that I will remember Thakur at the moment of my death." And he was really touched by that. So many things she could have said. And that's what she prayed for. So